Welcome back again. It's Ryan Miller with Etna Interactive. We're here today to talk about online marketing benchmarks. Now, specifically, if you're a practice leader responsible for making decisions about your online marketing investments, you probably are often, cursed with the question, how do I know if my online marketing is actually working? Now, most of you know how to measure performance in local search and organic search, like what we see here on the map. Local search is the top of the screen, organic search is the bottom of the screen. Both of these are results on Google, and we know either we're on the first page or we're not on the first page. But when we start looking at other channels, we have to ask, well, how would we actually measure performance? Let's talk first about email marketing. Now, we've covered this in the past, but we had some really good questions that come back, specifically about these first benchmarks. Why do we look at two different benchmarks for list growth? Well, the main reason is this. I'm often surprised by how many clinics completely fail to focus on growing their list either in the practice or they fail to connect their website to their newsletter subscription software. So these two benchmarks here, looking about 1 in every 100 site visitors being added to your list and 1 in every 10 patient encounters making it onto your list, helps you to focus on both of the areas where you might grow your list. And the two benchmarks that you want to look at, how would you even see these? Ask your team if you use something like Constant Contact or MailChimp, if you use software for customer relationship management like Solution Reach or Demand for Sphere email. Look at the legacy, the log of all of your past campaigns. Look at open rate and click-through. And if your numbers are consistently below 2010, well, that's the time where you and your team need to talk about improving your email marketing. Now, what about social media? It's certainly a little bit harder to measure performance in social media. The first thing we want to look at is the follower trend. And this is something that you can easily see by logging into either Facebook or Instagram and looking at what's called your Insights control panel. The reports that are there on Insights are going to allow you to see the trend in follower growth over time. Now, when we look at the two platforms, there's some variation here. Facebook growth has been trending down. Not as many people are signing on to Facebook, although it is still growing as a platform, while Instagram is taking off. On average, though, when we look across the two platforms, if you're not a social media celebrity, well, 1% growth rate, month over month, is a healthy growth rate for most aesthetic clinics. Now, audience engagement is something else that you can look at, and for this you don't even need to go into the back end of the reporting for either Facebook or Instagram. What you want to do is take all of the signs of engagement. These might be people adding an emotional reaction, liking your post, sharing or commenting on that post. Take each one of those as a discrete activity, sum them together, and if on average you are exceeding a 2% response rate, where 2% looks at the engagement divided by your total fan count, generally speaking, you're doing pretty well. Now, let's talk about paid media. And I'll tell you on this one, this is one that gets me all the time. When we hear from a prospective client that they're actively engaged in pay-per-click advertising, but they're not actually measuring their investment return. In pay-per-click advertising in particular, well, this is one of those areas where we can invest with certainty. So we need to step back and ideally set a threshold of how much you're willing to tolerate in a ratio of investment to return. We recommend in general that if you can prove by auditing your form-based leads and your phone calls that you're making at least a 5-to-1 return on your investment, that you probably should keep things going with your pay-per-click, although never stop the conversations about how exactly we go about improving that investment return. If it's under 5-to-1, well, then it's time to have a serious conversation about whether or not the platform is viable for the long term. Now, when we talk about reputation benchmarks in particular, what we want to look at are those sites that are most visible in your market. These might be discoverable to you. Actually, you can go back and watch our very last newsletter topic on this issue, simply by searching for your medical specialty. So it might be ophthalmology, the city where you're predominantly located or focused on, and then looking at which rating and review sites show up most often. Now, we're going to be concerned, of course, with sites like Google and Facebook, and in many markets, it will be sites like Yelp or medical sites like HealthGrades, RateMDs, and Vitals. You'll make a little list there, and what you want to see is that you have at least 10 reviews and at least 4 stars on those top 5 to 10 rating and review sites that are most visible in your market. If you don't, well, that's a sign to you as a leader that you need to focus effort and attention on your online reputation. Now, the last one here that we're going to talk about today are your conversion benchmarks. Now, these benchmarks in particular, I know we have viewers in many, many different specialties, but our largest sample is in the market of aesthetics. And what we're going to look at here are the 2 key conversions, from inquiry to consultation, from consultation to paying procedure. And what we look at is on average, about 35% of those web inquiries ultimately become consultations. Consultation to service is about a 51%. What we all know is that those web-based leads will sometimes convert less strongly than leads that are collected by something like word of mouth. And the aggregate conversion from web inquiry to service, well, that's at 16.3%. Now, how would you identify whether or not, or how you are converting? A simple test that you can do is to save all of the email leads that you receive in 1 month, to take all of the phone calls that you receive in 1 month and to log those. And at the end of the month, keep a record of those inquiries if you don't have more sophisticated software like our clients do. Keep a record of those and audit. Identify where they are and how they progress through the sales cycle and how much revenue is attached to each one of those opportunities. It's going to tell you both your conversion at each one of those stages and your return on investment for your online marketing overall. Now, we've developed a great tool, a fantastic guide that you can request online simply by completing the form that's linked here. We'll also provide the link in the email distribution and the blog post where you're going to be able to watch this recording. Fill that out, download it, and it's designed to help you as a practice leader ascertain where you're doing well and where you need to focus some effort and attention for the future. Of course, if you have any questions about any of this, we invite you to give us an email. My email is on the screen, and we'll wish you a very happy day.